Hey guys, Skylar Harpo here, also known as Mason, and today I'm reading another creepypasta. If you can't tell by the picture by myself here, today's creepypasta goes by the name A Puppet to Her Fame. So, let's go. Got my water for my throat. Got my iPad. And my glasses are fixed. My real ones. So yeah, got those on. And this is just a little warning by the creator of the creepypasta. Rated mature for violence and language. She left me. She left me and I was powerless to stop it. After all the suffering I endured at the hooves of my parents, after fighting the haunting melodies of that cursed cello, after making myself vulnerable and trusting her completely, she left me. Now I sit alone in my room. The music that has been tormenting me my whole life is all I have left. I focus my eyes on the desk and pour all my attention into transcribing the music onto paper. There was nothing else in my room I wanted to look at. I did not turn to see my cello sitting in its stand. I did not glance at the blood-stained wall or corpses of my parents. I did not look to see her sunglasses on my nightstand. My life has nothing left. So I compose. I craft a mournful sonata into a piece that will last millennia. Even the last bit of sunlight in my life. My mic fell while I was in the middle of reading. Stupid microphone. Even the last bit of sunlight in my life cast through a hole in my curtains is fading. All that I have, all that remains, is the music. Dang throat. Okay, so that was a good intro to this, but yeah, I'm gonna read it like I normally do with my narrator's voice, even if it's a female character. My parents named me Octavia. They decided before I was born that their daughter would be a famous musician. I can only imagine their shock, as I was but a foal when the two unicorns gave birth to an earth pony. My father, as conservative and spiteful as they came, was a famous conductor. My mother, who was swift to pass judgment, the famous composer. They had long unbroken lines of musical prodigies in their families. Not even my status as just an earth pony would break that chain. I was raised from a young age knowing nothing but music. There were no boring friends or depressing playgrounds to distract me. I had my enthralling books in music theories. Wise and elderly instructors and gentle parenting instead. As an earth pony, I decided I had to prove every day I was just as good as a unicorn. When I complained or failed, I was acquainted with more effective means of parenting. To their credit, the lessons rarely left marks. It would not bode well for their filly to be seen with bruises or sent to the hospital with a broken leg. Regardless of the more heavy-hoofed aspects of my childhood, they still found time to teach me other lessons. Dang it. I'm fine. They still found time to teach me other lessons. I most prominently remember my weekly trips to the orchestra hall. It was much more fun than meeting ponies my own age. My stoic father offered his silent support from the front row. My mother would guide me between the instruments, pointing out my failings with such grace. Try to sit up straight. You're not sweating in the dirt. Plow a field. Hold the violin like this. Octavia, stop fidgeting with your bow tie. That's depressing. All I had to do was earn their love. All I had to do to earn their love was receive my cutie mark from an instrument. Surely I, an earth pony, could at least accomplish that. Month by month, they graced me with their presence at the concert hall. Week by week, I failed to find my cutie mark. Day by day, my father ignored the cries for help as my mother took her anger out on me. Hour by hour, I was dying on the inside. I was desperate for their approval, if only for an end to the pain. Wow. Those parents sound like they're doing that to her. That's just a picture of a murderous pony. Never mind the picture I just put on the screen. Boop. Okay. I still recall the day I finally got my cutie mark. At least, I recall that I can't remember how it appeared. Octavia, father stated. He stood in the hallway with perfect posture and no hint of a smile on his face. I hurried over to him, frowning while keeping my eyes on the floor. Yes, father? We've decided to stop taking you to the concert hall. I bought you a cello, and you will only play it from now on. I looked up at him and gasped. But that's not Octavia, father interrupted. His tone stayed perfectly casual. It is final. If you had any talent, you would have found your cutie mark by now. You will take this cello and play it every day until it becomes your talent. No way! I won't play this stupid cello! I screamed. I started to run towards my room and collided with the chef, nearly knocking him over. Father looked at the cook and spoke. I expect my dinner in my study in 30 minutes. Bring wood for my fireplace and teach my daughter a lesson 20 times before then. He turned to leave, and I was already in tears. I slumped on the ground in front of the chef. The fact that Father never raised his voice was the worst part. He would order a servant to discipline me no differently than he'd ask them to change his lane. Linens. Took me a second. There were no other earth bunnies at the mansion, just the chef and me. I'm glad he had enough of a conscience to only beat me half to death. When he stopped hitting my flank early, my first thought was to beg him to finish. The punishment would only get worse once my father found out. He went easy on me. Please. He'll punish both of us if he doesn't hear the screaming. I thought I saw him choke back a tear before walking in silence. Something's going on with my throat today. Within 30 minutes of the punishment, my hunger drove me to sneak out of my room. I was feeling energetic after being spared the majority of my father's wrath. The only thing on my mind was snatching something to eat and drink. Meals were a privilege given to reward my good behavior. I still recall my giddiness, my youthful how do I say that word? Exuberance at having only lashed 10 times instead of 20. I wish I still had that innocence of youth. The kitchen was just part of a set of stairs leading into the attic. I heard most of the bizarre noises emitting from above me. Dissonant chords were waving through the air. I could almost make out the spoken word within the haunting melody. A vibrato pulsated through the air like a heartbeat. I could not tell if they were chanting or playing an instrument. I was enthralled by the song drawn up the staircase as a slow crescendo built. Like the sirens of a yore, I gazed up at the source of the unnatural performance. I quietly crept onto the last step of the landing and slowly opened the door to peek inside. To this day, I still can't recall the source of that infernal chanting. Just that it somehow didn't agree with me. The only memory left is stepping back in shock and falling right off the landing. During my tumble down the stairs, I lost consciousness. You can imagine my confusion when I awoke the next morning with my cutie mark. Somebody had moved me to my bed. All four of my legs were banged up and sore from the fall. I had a bandage on my head and felt like a carriage had run me over. As I moved my leg, a sharp pain shot up my flank. I felt like something had been carved into it. I looked down and there was no wound, only a purple treble clef. I had finally gotten a cutie mark in music. My parents might finally accept me. The only problem was that I did not have the faintest clue how the clef had come to adorn my flank. I recall leaving my room in youthful optimism to tell my parents I had gotten my cutie mark. Giggling filled the air. I skipped down the hallway. I was smiling from ear to ear, so excited to finally have my cutie mark. Now they would treat me like their daughter. They would love me. If I made them proud, perhaps I could start spending time with those bronies. After my daily practice, I could go make a friend. At first, I could not find my parents. When I heard their voices echoing from around a corner, I crept up towards it slowly. Just because you buy her some special cello doesn't mean she has any talent, Mother stated. And I will not keep wasting time on her. It is done. She has the cello and a mark, Father barked. And now what? You continue to have servants discipline her for you until she gets good. We could have avoided all this if you'd let me abort the pregnancy before your parents found out, Mother said. Don't bring them into this. You recall they told me not to marry you. If we can teach that worthless mud pony to be a famous musician, it will prove that we're better than any of them. Then let me handle her. You lack stability. I will make her submit to her fate and play the cello. Mother trailed off as I sprinted back to my room. I could barely see through the tears and sobbed loudly between breaths. Once I got to my room, I closed the door and collapsed in the middle of the carpet. They knew I had gotten my cutie mark. They'd bought me a cello and they'd still thought I was a worthless mud pony. If I could have crawled crawled in a hole and died at that moment, I would have. My neck hurts. God, I need something to put my iPad on so I can read it better. Ow. Water. An echoing melody filled the room, distracting me from the horrible conversation I had overheard. It was the same one I had heard in the attic, only now it was played by an unaccompanied cello. I wiped my eyes and glanced over at my cello in its stand. The bow rested next to it unused. I approached the cello and found the strings were still. The music was all around me, filling the room, yet it came from nowhere. It continued to get louder, angrier, as percussions and brass instruments joined in. I could barely hear the thundering melody through the ringing in my ears. I searched every corner of the room as the symphony continued to build. I felt drawn to the cello. It was becoming painful and consistently drew my gaze back to the instrument. I have no idea why I just went into a voice there. Sometimes that happens. First time it happened in the video, though. I searched every corner of the room as the symphony continued to build. I felt drawn to play the cello. It was becoming painful and it consistently drew my gaze back to the instrument. I couldn't take it anymore, so I began to scream. I kicked the cello from its stand, and scurried underneath my bed. I was so frightened that I remained curled up under the bed for a full day. The music did not cease. Once my parents would have blamed me for all this. They would say I had gone insane, that the cutie mark was a fraud, and they would never love me. Dang it. This is just chapter 1 and we're not even done with it yet. Yeah, we still got a lot of page to go through. Mother, can you hear the music? I asked. What music, darling? She coldly replied. It's slow and sorrowful. It's far away, but I hear it clearly. That is your muse. Go now and compose what you're hearing. But it's dinner. Octavia, do not presume to talk back to me. Go to your room at once. Yes, ma'am. I spat doubtlessly. Doubtless she had picked up on my sarcasm. I was certain she would repay me in kind. She would repay me in kind later. It is an odd thing how the threat of violence loses its edge when it becomes a commonplace as breathing. Since discovering my cutie mark, my ears could hear the sound of music everywhere I went. Whole notes drifted lazily through the air, while staccato eighth notes battled for my attention. Warm major chords invited me into the relaxing embrace. Minor chords taunted me with their slight dissonance. It was when I began composing that I discovered how to rid myself of the annoying melodies. Each time I would compose one of the songs I heard, it would leave my mind and give me a brief respite, like an itch that would not go away. Each song that vanished was replaced by a more persistent, complex piece of music. For years, my frustration grew. When I kept it to myself in my room, like a good earth pony, my parents would leave me alone. I spent every waking moment composing music and playing cello. That maple and ebony cello and music composition were my only talents. They were the only things that made my existence worthwhile. As long as I could play, as long as I had the sanctuary of my room, I could endure the pain, and living with my family was painful. Day after day I composed, practiced, then performed. Every time I left my room, I ran the risk of incurring my parents' wrath. I once managed to avoid them for a whole week. I ate meals in my room and spoke only to the servant who escorted me to the theater for performances. I thought I could avoid my mother forever. A month later, I auditioned for the Royal Canterlot Orchestra. I finally reached the minimum age of 18. "Octavia, put your bow tie back on," Mother ordered. "No, it's too tight," I complained. "You'll put it on, this isn't it?" This isn't... Dang it, why can't I say this word? You'll put it on this instant, or else... Or else what? You'll beat me in front of the judges and spectators. Maybe pummel me as the stagehands ready the red bow tie floated over to my neck and quickly fastened itself. I stood there on 4 legs as she cinched it as tight as the magic would allow. I found myself unable to breathe, let alone speak another word of protest. "It's too tight." I opened and closed my mouth like a fish out of water. I sat on my rump to free my forelegs and crawled at the bow tie. No pony saw me, or no pony cared. As I suffocated backstage, the pressure on my neck was starting to make me lightheaded. I could feel tingling in my face and burning in my lungs. My panicked heart beat faster and faster. I was beginning to pass out and saw nothing but red in my vision. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. When she loosened up the bow tie, my body trembled as I nursed my sore throat from aching lungs. A rush of warmth left my head, and my palpitating heart began to slow. "You're next, darling. Do not disappoint me." Like father disappoints you in bed every night, I thought. I was so frightened and starved for air that I bit my tongue. I would have saved the vehement comment for later. I watched her leave as the announcer walked on stage and began speaking. A fresh wave of panic swept over me as I realized he was announcing my audition. Either I would become the cellist in the orchestra, or my parents would devise a clever new way of parenting their daughter. "Octavia," the announcer proclaimed. Ponies began to clap, neither too loud nor too soft. I glanced at the straight hand who carried my cello out for me. He nodded his head towards the spotlight. I made that sound like a question. I'm sorry. He nodded towards the spotlight. I was still in shock and panicked. I refused to move. Then when I saw a hook dangling in front of me, it was thinner than a gossamer string with a hook resembling the kind of fish a fisherman would use. I could see no source of the string, nor could I discern its purpose. Curiosity got the better of me. Without anything to distract me, time seemed to stretch on endlessly. Slowly I raised my hoof to the odd golden barb. I tapped it and watched it swing gently in midair. I tapped it again and felt it prick my skin. I yanked my leg back from the sharp pain. I felt where it had pricked me, yet the spider hook had seemed to move. My eyes followed the string, looking for where it had bitten into my flesh. When I found the end of the string, it was pierced straight through the pastern above my hoof. The hook was too deep to be visible, and when I tugged on the string, I could feel it tug at my bone. That sounds painful, man. You can see it on the picture over by my house, over by me over here. I think I'm even pointing to it. I felt a sharp pain as the string retracted, drawing my hoof forward. I saw another silvery strand branch out and embed itself into my left foreleg. I tried to rear up and tear them out, but they were fastened too securely. One leg at a time, the two lines tugged me forward. Each step towards the cello that I resisted caused another jolt of pain. It was as if the hooks had embedded themselves into the tendons and nerves of my legs. I found myself walking along to the tempo of the mysterious strands until I reached my cello. I was still nervous to perform. The friendly strings had thought of everything. They raised me to my normal posture. I balanced myself on two legs with the cello for stability. I took the bow in my hoof and began to play. I had saved a lovely ballad titled Luna's Remorse for the occasion. As I lost myself in the music, I hardly noticed as the strings and hooks vanished. They had accomplished their purpose. That's what I like to call dark magic. Something that I am quite a fan of, actually, and something people shouldn't mess with. My neck. If I had ever been happy before, perhaps the feeling of my acceptance into the orchestra would not have been such a shock. I wanted to dance, to scream, to run off at once to the orchestra practice. No longer would I live in a gilded cage composing instrumental pieces and playing endless sonatas for 2 hours a night, 5 nights a week. I would be safe from my parents. I would get to meet 80 other ponies in the orchestra. The chance to be free of their influence was reward enough. But I had something else on my mind. They had taught me as a child that friends would be worthless, yet I have always doubted it. It seemed like there were ponies out there that would not hate me just for what I was. Perhaps some of the ponies in the orchestra would like me. It was then I realized what this meant. I would have friends. I rode the wave of endorphins and happiness for a full week, until my first night of practice with the orchestra. My sleepless nights were hardly noticed amongst all the songs demanding to be written. Neither hunger, malnutrition, nor punishments ensued by my mother fazed me, and the entire time. Okay, I'm gonna pause the recording for a second because I need to see what's going on with my throat. I have no idea what's going on. But I will return. I'm straining my voice reading. Yeah, and my mom says that my hair is a mess right now in real life. Like, why do you think I made that hair for my OC? But yeah, my throat is being strained because I'm using a different voice for my reading. So yeah, back to the story. Playing with the new musicians and conductor was pure bliss. Every pony was friendly or quiet and reserved. The conductor did not go out of his way to embarrass me when we played one of my own compositions. There were no loaded questions designed to goad me into misbehavior or vile threats behind false kindness. The ponies were real, happy and alive. Finally, something happy. My fellow musicians had the kind of freedom I had always dreamed of. I resolved to do nothing, to do anything. I had to in order to earn it for myself. The first practice passed quickly, and soon I found myself packing up to return home. A mint green mare had been watching me during the last song, and approached me shortly after. Perhaps it was the way I looked in amazement at the simplest things, like the Wonderbolts sticker on a violin case. Maybe she could see that I needed a friend. I know who this person is. Mostly because I just read who it is. Hi, my name's Lyra. Good evening, I replied. I'm Octavia. I extended a hoof to shake when she quickly bumped it. Cool, I saw your audition. You want to visit a nightclub with me and my friends? She maintained a friendly smile and allowed me to make eye contact with her. Part of me considered declining her offer. It was the part that I had been beaten into submission. The majority of my being, however, naive, knew this was my opportunity to be free and enjoy a night like normal ponies. I would get to hang out with this mare. I wouldn't have to return home until later that evening. I would be rid of my parents, even if only for a few hours. I should probably get dressed really quick, so... Recording pause. I needed a little resting for my voice, because I don't want to get laryngitis. But yeah, back to the story. I wouldn't like that, I admitted. I smirked as I pictured my furious mother stomping around the study. It kinda texted me. My phone is on my bed now, though. I wouldn't like that, I admitted. I smirked as I pictured my furious mother stomping around the study, wondering where I had run off to. It's not fair. She led me out the back door of the theater towards the nightclub. The expansive theater dwarfed the rest of the buildings in the district. A road ran around it, and several streets spread from it, like spokes on a wheel. Laura took me down one such road. How long have you played cello? Lyra inquired. I've been playing it every day since I got my cue mark. Lyra glanced back at the cutie mark and frowned. Shouldn't it be a bass clef? You got your cutie mark playing cello, right? Then shouldn't it be a bass clef? I don't know. I don't know how I got it. I guess I was just lucky. Lucky? Nobody wakes up one morning with a cutie mark. Did you start out on a violin and changed your mind after I found? Did you start out playing the cello? Hold on. Nope, my tongue's not in the knot. So I don't know why I'm saying stuff wrong. Lucky? Nobody... I'm gonna repeat this paragraph, I'm sorry. Lucky? Nobody just wakes up one morning with a cutie mark. Did you start out playing on the... Did you start out on the violin and change your mind? After I found my cutie mark, I still wanted to play guitar. That is the second time I messed up guitar with Tigar in my life. Dang it. I still wanted to play guitar. It was too hard. I needed thumbs or something to play one. My apologies. You're right. I smiled at her and giggled as I pictured her playing guitar. I didn't just wake up with it. I compose music, too. That's why it's a treble clef. Oh, that makes loads more sense. Have you composed anything I might have heard of? Well, I added, smiling, I composed the concerto we were playing tonight. Octavia, she gasped. You're the filly who started composing at 8 years old. Correct. So I don't really get out much. Well, no wonder. You've released at least a dozen songs and written sheet music for every instrument. I said that wrong. I put emphasis on the wrong syllable. You've written sheet music for every instrument I can think of. I really got to show you a good time tonight. You might have spent every minute of every day locked in a room composing. I chuckled nervously. You have no idea. I blushed and averted my gaze towards my surrounding. The cobblestone streets were still wet from a rainstorm. Lumps of neon signs reflected off small puddles of water. Red seemed to be the dominant color in the grimy streets we were walking down. I had never gone this far from my home and found it exciting. Lyra must have seen how much I was enjoying the scenery, as bland and filthy as it was, for she did not speak up until we reached the club. Well, we're here, Lyra shouted. She swept a hoof out in front of her, inviting me to take in the scene. I wasn't sure what to expect as I looked at the club. The neon sign pulsed to the beat playing inside. The bass rhythm was the only part audible from the outside. The sign read the blue moon with the bee. The bee was flickering rapidly, and the end had burnt out. On an azure blue moon was seductively smiling. Luna hung over the neon letter. An azure blue moon with a seductively smiling Luna hung over the moon. Letter. Hung over the... Okay, I'm gonna start that sentence over for the third time. The sign had read the blue moon with the bee. The bee was flickering rapidly, and the end had burnt out. An azure blue moon with a seductive smiling moon hung over the neon lettering. The building was constructed from large gray stone, and the door was the sole feature. It seemed to suck the nearby ponies in. They were drawn to the velvet ropes in lone pony guarding the front door. Several stallions were lined up behind him, waiting for their chance to get in. This nightclub has the best DJ in Canterlot, and I cut the drinks with grain alcohol instead of water, Lyra explained. I don't understand. Grain alcohol? Cutting a drink? It means you get more drunk instead of less drunk when the bottle is running empty. Come on. Lyra walked up to the door and began talking to an earth pony. I looked around, noticing how uninviting every other building on the street looked. Lyra grabbed me by the hoof, pulling me into the club. The blurry stallion at the front door let us pass. As we walked into the dark nightclub, my senses were assaulted by the smell of smoke. I began to notice the layout of the club as my eyes adjusted to the dim light. Ponies were relaxing at tables and enjoying their drinks. Others were smoking. A few seemed to be passing small pills out. The ponies that chose to dance to the music were sweating in a large crowd on the dance floor. The warm air carried by their musky odor throughout the club. My shoulder's hurting. That happens when my neck hurts too much sometimes. I was worried the complex melodies that consistently demanded my attention would detract from my enjoyment of the nightclub. For what would prove to be the first and most blissful night I can recall, it did not. Deep bass rhythms flooded my ears, each drop, each beat hammering its way into my consciousness. The cello solo that had been stuck in my head for 2 weeks was powerless against the thumping music. I followed Lyra to the dance floor, where her and a tan mare began to stare at me. I believe they expected me to dance. Man, I'm glad I'm not using a face gun. I was full of nervous energy and adrenaline. Here I was, far from home, at the first and biggest party of my life. I wanted to scream and join in the dancing as the thought of how ridiculous I'd look entered my head. I found myself too nervous to consider it. My lips had begun to feel dry, and I wet them with my tongue, wishing I had a drink. Lyra must have known how thirsty I was because she quickly carried over some water for me. Thanks, Lyra, I replied. I took the glass of clear liquid, greedily swallowing it all. It burned. Oh, how the first drink burned. I choked and coughed, wishing the fluid was out of me. What, Lyra, was that? What was in that? Lyra and her friend finished laughing as their faces began to return to their normal color. That was vodka. You should have seen the look on your face. Vodka. I coughed again. What? Alcohol. It loosens you up and get you to stop acting so prime and proper. Really? Really, Lyra? The tan mare shouted. I think you would have matured a little by now. Hello, Octavia. My name is Bonbon. You can call Hess. I used my Octavia voice there. Sorry. You can call her a stick in the mud, Lyra added. Thanks. Nice to meet you. Lyra, could I get something normal to drink? My voice was still raspy from the vodka's unexpected assault on my vocal cords. Wishing I had some vodka now. Not really, I'm 13, I can't drink. Lyra gave a little chuckle while Bonbon gave her a disapproving glare as they both turned and walked to the bar. I was left waiting and noticed the ponies dancing and the DJ on stage. I looked up at the mare spinning records in wide purple sunglasses. Her fur was white as a fresh snowfall, and her electric blue mane would put my mother's sapphire necklace to shame. Here was a mare that had it all. The freedom to party every night, and no pony telling her what to do. DJ Pawn 3. I could still feel the warmth spreading from my stomach to the rest of my body. The drink Lyra gave me was making me feel a little lightheaded. I also became fascinated with the neon lights surrounding the dance floor along the ceiling. Several blue, red, and green beams were refracted into dozens of dots on the dance floor. Between the light show and dancing ponies, it seemed as if the electronic rhythms had come to life. Lyra and Bonbon returned and gave me a second drink of the night. The drinks made dancing seem easier, and the excitement overwhelming. I hardly noticed that Lyra was supplying me drink after drink. I had no experience with alcohol or pacing myself. I continued to attempt to dance with Lyra, yet my gaze always returned to the DJ. "Who's the DJ?" I asked. "That's DJ Pawn 3, Lyra stated. I knew it. I flippin' knew it. Look into the yellow of my eyes. I knew it. And no, my eyes aren't yellow in real life, they're blue. Grayish blue. Well, she's hot, I giggled. Well then. I think she found a special some pony. Lyra grinned. You're not the only mare stallion here to think that. Think she wants to hang out? I'm trying to sound like my voice is slurred for Octavia, because you can't see the story that I'm reading, but there's her speaking is slurred. Goodness, Lyra, what have you been giving her? Bonbon asked. Wow. The worst part is, I have heard of all of the drinks Lyra gave Octavia in this story. Oh, just some Long Island iced tea, a couple penny droppers, and a few shots of Colt Daniels. Lyra ran out of hooves to count on, and she noticed Bonbon's glare. Really, Lyra? Were you trying to knock her out? It's okay. I think it's the best night I've ever had. I never get to leave the mansion. My gaze was drawn back to the DJ as I thought I saw her lift her glasses and wink. I could feel the heavy beats from the subwoofers. Between the music and alcohol, my parental issues were the last thing on my mind. I wished that joyful night would have gone on forever. Time blurred together as hours passed like minutes, and soon the DJ stopped playing and several ponies started to leave. Well, I tell you, I used my bonbon voice for Lyra. Crap. Well, Octavia, why don't you ask her to hang out? Looks like the show's over, Lyra advised. Sure enough, not 2 minutes later, the DJ had walked over to us. I'll never forget the way she smiled. It was as if every moment was the happiest one in her life. She had no worries nor cares. And just gazing into that smile made my own worries seem twice as distant. Her name's Octavia. You're poor. I smiled and wobbled. Had Lyra not kept one hoof on me, I would have fallen over. She is drunk. She needs some water. I have no idea how I'm going to read this. I already have enough voices in this story already, so I'm going to leave the story there for the day. So that I can think of the voice to use for Vital. So, I have been Skylar Harpo, you have been amazing, and I bid you all farewell. Bye.